In the last Pokemon Presents, we were introduced to this guy, Duraludon, a new evolution of Duraludon. But a lot of folks online seemed less interested in this new drawbridge guy, and more interested in what the evolution meant for the viability of everyone's favorite lighter skyscraper dragon thing. Duraludon means Duraludon will be able to hold Eviolite. Eviolite is a held item introduced in Generation 5 that increases the Pokemon's defense and special defense by 1.5 times if they're not fully evolved. It was Game Freak's way of making it so sometimes it's optimal not to evolve your Pokemon. And it's been pretty successful. There are multiple non-fully evolved Pokemon that players have used to great success in the official competitive circuit thanks to Eviolite. Today, let's look at what it is that makes an Eviolite Pokemon worth using over its evolved form so we can figure out if Duraludon will join the club of viable Eviolite users. Starting with one of the most popular Eviolite users, Dusclops. Dusclops has two jobs: set up Trick Room and support its team with its extremely dense supportive move pool, full of stuff like Will-O-Wisp and Taunt. Because Dusclops already has insane defense and special defense, you reach astronomical numbers when combined with Eviolite, so much so that it ends up being significantly more bulky than its evolution, Dusknoir. This guy got really popular during Sword and Shield because it was great for setting up Trick Room, then activating Weakness Policy on a Pokemon like Rhyperior, thus allowing Dusclops to still contribute to its team's damage. This has started to pop up again recently, with Leonard Craft's Blood Moon Ursalina Dusclops team top 8ing the Peoria Regional Championships. Another prominent member of the Eviolite Club is Clefairy. In Generation 6, it transformed from a normal type to a fairy type. Combine that with its ability Friend Guard, which reduces damage its partner Pokemon takes by 25% while Clefairy is on the field, and you're looking at a pretty good Pokemon. But Clefable is also pretty bulky, so surely it's not another Dusclops Dusknoir situation here, right? Well, you are right. You see, when Clefable evolves, it loses Friend Guard, which is extremely potent when combined with the move Follow Me. You can redirect attacks away from your partner, or just make sure they take less damage. It's an extremely frustrating combo to handle. So, it's not that Clefairy outstats Clefable, it's just that Eviolite is a great item to use if you want to use Clefairy's unique moveset. You can see a lot of people using Clefairy right now, including 45 Mice's top 8 team at Peoria. Third in our little gallery is Chansey. Chansey is a pretty similar situation to Dusclops. Compare Eviolite Chansey to Blissey with a held item, and you have a way bulkier Pokemon. Chansey already has an insane HP stat, so bolstering its defensive stats is extremely strong. It's worth noting that, at least in VGC, Chansey's only notable performances have been on guard split Shuckle gimmick teams, designed to make a nearly unkillable max evasion monster. And moving on to the last of the big 4 Eviolite Pokemon, we have my favorite, Porygon 2. This is another Pokemon with great support moves: Trick Room, Recover, Eerie Impulse, Icy Wind, just to name a few. Thanks to Porygon 2's pretty solid special attack stat and perfect coverage with Bolt Beam, Eviolite bolsters Porygon 2's already solid defenses so it can stick around, set Trick Room, and spam its Bolt Beam combo for many turns. Porygon 2 is pretty unique because its evolution isn't really a better version of the same Pokemon, but one that wants to do something completely different altogether, with Porygon Z being much frailer and hitting much harder. There are a few other niche Pokemon that have had some sporadic success as Eviolite users, like Scyther, Torracat, and Mischievous, but the 4 we've talked about are the main ones that have been successful. Finally, let's turn our attention back to Duraludon and see if it has any traits that would make it a good Eviolite user. But before we do, subscribe. First, let's look at Duraludon's abilities to see if we have a Clefairy situation. Light Metal and Heavy Metal are both borderline useless abilities, but Duraludon does have a signature ability, Stalwart, which allows its moves to ignore redirection. This is a pretty powerful effect, but it's way less universally powerful than an ability like Friend Guard. And Duraludon is lacking a move that can really take advantage of this ability, like Taunt. So, if Eviolite Duraludon is good, it won't be for this reason. Next, let's look at its stats. 115 base defense multiplied by 1.5 times is pretty dang good, and with Duraludon's embarrassingly low 50 special defense, it already liked to use the item Assault Vest. So Eviolite can kind of serve as a more flexible version of that item. But is it enough? Well, we have to ask ourselves what we're going to do with our bulky Duraludon. Let's look at its moves. For its supporting moves, last generation it got Light Screen, Reflect, Thunder Wave, Breaking Swipe, and Snarl as its most exciting options. You could also try running an Iron Defense Body Press set. Just remember that Body Press actually doesn't use the extra defense you get from Eviolite in damage calculation. As far as real attacking moves go, its moves pool is pretty limited. Draco Meteor, Dragon Pulse, Slash Cannon, Steel Beam, Thunderbolt, and Dark Pulse being the only really notable options, at least back in Gen 8. So where does this leave Duraludon? Players keep yelling that since it has such a high base stat total already, that Eviolite must make it a good Pokemon. But if those stat points aren't allowing Duraludon to do what it needs to do to be successful, then who cares? It's also worth noting that in Sword and Shield, Duraludon often was played with a Life Orb because it didn't deal enough damage otherwise. Eviolite wouldn't solve that problem, unless, I don't know, Duraludon got access to Nasty Plot all of a sudden. So, I think I can say pretty confidently that there won't be a place for Eviolite Duraludon in the metagame of competitive Pokemon, without a pretty massive change to the way Duraludon functions that we aren't aware of yet. So, what do you think of Duraludon? What would it need to be a viable Eviolite user in competitive? Let me know in the comments.